Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today's topic of discussion is education. The conversation on education, I want to talk about politics, and I think that we all have our own notions as to what politics means, but specifically what it means for us. But politics actually at its most basic form is any interaction between two people. Once you have more than one person, you have politics. Now, all of us have our own informed sense of politics. We have our own agenda, our own motivations and intentions. When we walk into a discussion, when we walk into a room, and I think it is really the collide of those intentions, of those motivations, and of everyone's goals and agendas that create a political arena. And so I think that there are ultimately two core dispositions by way of politics. And so for me, my core political disposition is definitely outcome-based politics. I'm not someone who's so much concerned about people and how to control and manipulate people, but I am very big on controlling and manipulating outcomes. And so this is why I think that I definitely gravitate towards project management, because everything really does translate as goals, as results, and as having a tangible solution as a byproduct of the energy that you spend. And so because I need that, that's like an intrinsic motivation of mine. It aligns with me being someone, and when I enter a political arena, my primary focus is outcome-based goals. How do I manage the political arena to get the outcomes that I'm looking for, to support the outcomes of my client, support the outcome, like everything about how I make decisions is really based on how do I get to a specific outcome. And my focus isn't so much on the people, more so about how I can leverage what competencies, what expertise, what elements of each person to attain a specific outcome. Very outcomes driven. And so there is always a little bit of a clash, a little bit of friction when an outcomes driven person, when that is your politics, is now in face with someone who's socially political. So their agenda, their motivation is how to control and manipulate people and players. So their reward is about how they get people to do what they want, less so about how they get a tangible outcome or a specific result that is something that we can collectively sort of understand or recognize as an accomplishment, essentially. And so because these people are intrinsically motivated to enter this social arena for very different reasons, it's important that they recognize how to respond and react to one another, right? And so though I am not someone who is socially political, I'm not socially politically motivated, I learned very earlier in my career that there's no way to advance your career or no way to really engage successfully in a professional or even personal setting if you're not at least tapped in and aware of social politics, of social dynamics, essentially. And not just because there are people out there who are very much motivated in that sense, but also to safeguard yourself from tactics that people often might use to manipulate, control, and manage your behavior in a way that you might not like or appreciate. But all of us engaging with anyone at any point in time are in some sort of a political dance. And so oftentimes we think that politics is something that is unsavory. We have fairly negative connotations around how politics translates. And that's because when we look at politics on the political scheme, when we look at the government agendas and sort of the political arena, whether it's foreign or domestic policy, we see a lot of just shrewd and ruthless behavior that is not necessarily how we ourselves want to present ourselves. But all of that can be dialed down to the levels that it translates in our own given settings and spheres, because it's always going to be the same sort of dynamic. And so I think that it's really important that we recognize that there's no person who engages with another person who is not having a specific set of intentions or motivations that they want to derive from that, even if that's just to say hello. But so long as there are intentions or there are motivations, even if that's curiosity, there is politics. And I think that those who assume a position where they're anti-political or that they don't have a political stance are often the most political, right? But they try to sort of be under the radar. So anytime someone tells me that they're not political at all, I always take it with a grain of salt, because whether or not they recognize their behavior as political or not, like any engagement, any discussion, any interaction with another person is a political one. And we're all political. Society in and of itself is political, but it's just figuring out who you are as a political player and how that translates when you are entering different spaces and places, and if whether or not the way that you manage your politics is in alignment with your values and with your beliefs. And I think that that's just so crucial, because a lot of the times we end up finding ourselves playing politics in a way that's not in alignment with our values, and that can create a huge disconnect. And I'm someone who's a big believer in my politics, the way that I engage with people around me, it really needs to align with my core values. And my corest of core values is living and let live. I am a human who really, and I'm not at all about coercive behavior. I'm not the person who is going to try to dominate you with my beliefs or try to make you believe the things that I believe. I don't need that out of a political interaction. I don't need someone to see things the way that I see them. I don't need them to agree with my position. I don't feel inclined that I need to agree with someone else's position. I really don't need that. And so how I navigate my politics, people will often see, like, it's very much live or let live, and which means there are specific gray zones that you often won't see me entering. There's often a lot of questions that people might ask that I wouldn't ask because I'm very much within this live and let live arena. Like, if I don't need to know, then why would I ask? Because I think a lot of curiosity is driven by social, political, intrinsic motivations. Like, there are certain things that you know those things so that you can apply specific levers. Because I'm not interested in applying those levers, I'm not really interested in knowing those things. Like, if they come up, of course I'm going to leverage that information or like bank it in my head. But because I'm an outcome driven political party, I'm not really someone who cares to pull at different tidbits and details of different people to figure out how that helps me maneuver around them. But I think that also the reason why I want to have this conversation and why this conversation starts at home is because I think all of us need to come to terms with the fact that political discourse is all of our discourse. Like, any two people talking is a political discussion. And any setting where you want to excel, where you want to thrive, you need to recognize that there's a political component to that. It's never just you in your own corner, in your own lane, focusing your goals and making things happen. You have to do the song and dance as well. So it's just making sure that you're doing the song and dance that still aligns with your values, it still aligns with how you yourself feel inclined to show up in the world around you. And if you're like me, where you're more live and let live, then it's a lot more challenging than you think, because there's a lot of people who don't align to that. Like, they want people to feel like them, to be like them, to think like them, to feel comfortable with them. So when they meet someone who's just like not interested in adopting their beliefs or even like playing as though they're adopting their beliefs, it creates like this friction because they perceive it as a challenge, when all it is really a clear distinction between where my politics start and end, right? And how my politics start and end. And I think if all of us were more aware of our own personal politics, of our own motivations when we enter into a discussion, into a conversation, when we're entering into any specific space, we can be much more conscientious of how it is that we're showing up and how that's impacting the people around us, and be more careful and more intentional about how things can translate in a way that is more towards of a service towards others. Because I think if we all had service-based politics, we were all focusing on the value add and the value contribution, and I think politics wouldn't be so unsavory. I think if we recognize that there's something positive and healthy in sort of the social, political sphere that we all find ourselves in, and it's the way that we choose to position ourselves, then we don't need to think that things that are political are things that are deterrents, right? And so that's a conversation I had very earlier in my career. It influences the way that I show up even in spaces now. It even influences the spaces that I choose to show up in, and that's because I recognize my own personal politics. And I think a lot of people don't think about what their personal politics are, or about how their personal politics will impact the discussions, the conversations, the relationships they find themselves in, personal, professional, or otherwise. And I think that it's important that we recognize our personal politics and where we stand outside of an extreme position happening because oftentimes we become, I think, more introspective about our politics when there's something really big happening, when there's like riots taking place or just like things happening in the political arena that involve more collective thought and inspire more collective vision. I think even in the absence of that, it's really important to know your political position and to make sure that you think about this element of alignment, right? Like, how you play politics. Is it how you see yourself, or do you step into a persona? Do you step into a mask, and are you comfortable being that person in that mask, playing those politics, and then going home and feeling completely disconnected from who you know yourself to be? Because oftentimes our masks become our identities if we wear them for far too long. And because I'm very much an advocate of individuality and of like having a strong sense of self-concept of your own sense of identity, but for the purpose of acting, living, breathing that identity out loud without shame, holistically in every space, I think that it's important to then have the initial discussion around personal politics and recognizing that we all have our own set of personal politics, and our politics influence and impact and interfere with other people's politics at all times. It's not just that people's politics are interfering with us, our politics are also interfering with them. It's a sort of it's a song and dance, it's a tug of war, but it's something that if we're conscientious of it, if we're much more aware of it, then we can sidestep some of the politics that are not as fun to deal with, and we can sidestep those things politics. We don't have to play into every political hand that is given to us. I mean, we can definitely choose to fold. And that's why I want to have this conversation, because I think that a lot of the times we think that politics doesn't apply, and I think that politics applies to everyone and anyone in a discussion with at least one person. And I think if we look at it that way, we think about like how our personal politics, like how we are ourselves motivated to engage with other people, how that influences the way people engage with us, and if whether or not the things that we allow ourselves to do in order to get the things that we're looking for aligns with their own core values and beliefs, like that's a discussion or introspection and reflection that we definitely need to have. And so I wanted to have this conversation around personal politics because I think that it's important that we all become aware and cognizant of what our personal politics are outside of what people tell us they should be. And our personal politics evolves as we evolve. It grows as we grow. It's a complex element of our own identity that I think that too many of us are just very unaware or unconscious or not really in tune with what those politics are. And so we find ourselves engaging in behaviors that maybe we ourselves don't appreciate that we did those things. And that's just because we really haven't put some thought into, well, if this is my personal politics, then how do I want that to translate? What are my own rules of engagement? What are the things that I won't allow myself to do to attain the things that I'm looking for, whether I'm socially, politically motivated or outcome-based motivated? And so that's what I wanted to come here and talk about, some food for thought for you, some things to think about. And I think that ultimately, like, we need to cultivate mastery in both arenas. So even if I am preferably, my disposition is more outcome-based political sort of positioning, I know that for me to excel in my career, for me to move forward, I also need to become masterful by way of social politica, because it's often who you know, not what you know, that gets you the opportunities that you're looking for in life, whether that's, again, work, life, or whatever. But I think it's a conversation to have. It's a conversation I wish I had more when I was in sort of discussions with people. Like, I love to have sort of armchair philosophizing with anyone and anyone who would engage with it with me. And so this is sort of the thought that I have right now around like my personal politics and how I felt my personal politics have grown and evolved as my experience has become much more international. As I even like lived abroad, I lived in France for a couple of years. I've now lived in Portugal for now going on my third year. And I just think about how even culture and awareness and language really does play into personal and outcome-based politics. And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation again today, just to kind of pique your interest in the conversation to have with yourself around your own personal politics, around how they're evolving, around how you would like them to evolve. Maybe just having a clear mental idea of your own personal politics and then giving yourself sort of a charter, like writing a charter with yourself by way of how you want that to translate in all the spaces that you go in, so that you feel that alignment, that connection between your personal politics, how you engage, how you influence change, how you motivate others, and who you see yourself to be. So that's the discussion I wanted to have, some food for thought for you. If I've piqued your interest, then we do have discussions twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our website. So definitely be sure to check those out. Now, these events are paid events. So if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, and I do suggest that you take a look at one of our package plans. Yes, so we do offer package plans over and above our live events, as well as access to webinars and workshops largely focused on self-mastery over and above those events. So check it out. Be part of our game changer community, being part of the change that you want to see, allowing us a small role to play in your journey. And now we are on the road to 1K, and so also we do have parent-child workshops that we offer, offering children the core competencies to develop their leadership quotient. And so this is built on 4 core pillars: cultivating autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept. So something for everyone in your family. Definitely check out our website and look forward to chatting with all of you very soon. We'll talk to you later.